Okay, yeah, I think let's start waffling on. Dan, what car are you? Oh yeah, so this is just my little runaround actually. I'm in a Z4. So what happened is that last year my Tesla came to the end of its 4-year lease, and I was like, oh, do I get another one? And I almost got another Model S. I really wanted the P100D, but then I realised I don't drive anymore. And I've been analysing my average monthly driving since March 2020, and it's massively dropped. And for a while it's stuck at about 10 miles a week, and that's when I could play golf. But since we've been banned from going anywhere, it's been literally, I think since Christmas I've averaged probably about 2 miles a week, and that's going to the local Tesco Express down the road. And I normally just go there in my pyjamas and dressing gown. So I was like, oh, I just can't warrant spending £1,200, £1,500 a month on a PCP or a hire purchase for a car which I'll never drive, or barely drive. And I think this is actually a good point about where you allocate your funds. So for me, the way I allocate sort of personal spending is things which I use a lot. So I think my dad always said, always buy good shoes because you wear them a lot. And I think I've sort of progressed that. And I think probably, I don't know, 6 years ago, I sat down, I was like, okay, what do I interact with every day? What do I use every day? And where am I every day? And so back then I used to, when I was doing these sort of time tracking, etc., I was driving about 500 to 1,000 miles a month. So I was using a car all day, and shoes, I'm in bed most of the time, or at least half of my life. What else? Even to the point, the light switches that I was, and the door handles I was using every day, the computer, keyboard and mouse, they're the things that, a watch I use every day, to a certain extent. Phone, basically all the things which I literally interfaced with every day. I was like, okay, I'm going to spend I'm going to buy the best thing I can buy with the things that I use. So I thought, okay, for my driving, I was like, yeah, Tesla, it made sense. I was doing 500 to 1,000 miles a month. It's pretty much free driving because of all the superchargers. It was the fastest thing on the road. Great, fine. Watch, I don't have a fancy special watch, but I just have like a digital smartwatch thing. And the thing with me is that all I need is the time. And also whenever I just do that it turns on. So at night when I'm walking around in the dark, I sort of just walk around my watch on. So yeah, sharing all the weird things I do. Shoes, good shoes, or comfy shoes, not like fancy sneakers or anything, just comfy shoes because I'm in them all the time. I bought like the most expensive bed I could find. It's amazing. It's like this big old Tempur mattress, like king size plus whatever. What else is there? Yeah, so that's that. And at the moment I'm not spending big money on a car because I just don't use it. We've still got the Model X for the kids and stuff. Whew, it's quite warm in this car, and I've got the dog with me, so I'm just going to put the aircon on. If I can figure out how to do that. There we go. Right. So yeah, I guess that's that. Right. So I guess today the topic of conversation is macrometrics, because we started this earlier on in the week, and I spent the whole session, like 45 minutes, just talking about money velocity, which still probably needs a bit more time to talk about that, but I think it's time to sort of move on from it. And so the other the main macrometrics which we need to be aware of are money velocity, debt, so that includes corporate debt, sovereign debt, private debt, GDP, and also SME growth, PMI, so the Purchasing Managers Index, and U6, so that's the unemployment numbers. And so they're the macrometrics, and hopefully you watched the other one earlier this week when I talked about leading and lagging indicators. But these are the metrics everyone needs to be aware of. Whereas if you interviewed 100 people in the street, what are the leading indicators, or what are the most important things you need to be aware of when looking at the global macro scene, they'll be like, oh, stock market, property prices. And the thing is, property prices and stock markets have zero relevance to how the economic health. Literally zero. A rising stock market or rising property market has zero meaning on the health of an economy, and the quicker people can realise that, the better things will be. Sorry, by the way, just a quick tangent. I wanted to apologise for the reason this is a late live session, but the thing is, I'm currently sat outside Float Norwich, which is one of the businesses, and we're in the middle of trying to exercise the break clause, but also the landlord wants to re-let it out. So hopefully we can get out this premises before the end of the break clause. And so he needed someone to come in and unlock the building so he can show some potential tenants round. But because all my Float staff are on furlough, I didn't want to basically drag them out and say, hey, can you open Float up? So I'm here. And what I did is I was like, okay, I'm going to leave early. I'm going to leave home early, like an hour early, to open it up. Then I can take Pips for a walk around the city, etc., etc. But then I went downstairs to find my car keys, which have my Float keys on. And guess what? They were gone. Ellie, my wife, had buggered off with my keys. And I then spent the best part of 40 odd minutes trying to had to drive to wherever she was. Then she wouldn't pick up the phone, and then eventually got hold of her. So it took me like 45 minutes to find her, get the keys, and race over here. And I only got here and opened up at like 12:05. So a bit of a mess. So I've got the iPhone on the one. Yeah. Anyway, so moving on. So we talked about MV last time. We're going to talk about debt quickly. So there are three types of debt: sovereign debt. So that's basically the amount of debt a country is in. We have corporate debt, that's the amount of debt that a company is in, and private debt is you and I. So the UK public, our private debt is the biggest in the whole world. Our debt to income ratio is something, the last time I checked, it's like 150%. We are the biggest overspenders on the planet, as in the UK public. You, me, everyone else here. So it's crazy. Now, obviously, all of that does also include mortgage debt, and because the UK is probably the most obsessed country on the planet when it comes to owning your own home, that's probably one of the reasons why, where people just trying to get on the property ladder, and what they end up doing is they borrow money to try and pay, get the deposit for their first house, and then they're stuck in a 200 grand mortgage for the rest of their lives or whatever. But not just that, our spending is just reckless. So yeah, the UK public are actually more reckless in their spending than the UK government, which I find hard to believe when they spend billions on a stupid track and trace spreadsheet and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that's another topic. So long story short, if you look at all the debt charts are catastrophic. They're just vertically up. And when you compare the debt charts compared to relative income or GDP, whatever, again, they're out accelerating. So what this means for the average Joe, you and I, is that debt is increasing faster than our income is. We have a hand up here on Clubhouse. Hey, Adam, you have the mic, sir. Did you want to chime in?
Keep going, I'll come to my question in a moment.
Roger. So that's that one. Sovereign debt obviously is going nuts, and as I explained in hopefully some of you watched my Evolution of War video, because it explains how countries become enslaved to central banks. But a lot of the undeveloped world, or the developing world, they're getting in debt through what's basically called economic hitmen, basically. No, that's too big a topic to go into today. Too big. I'm just going to move on. Anyway, so debt. So we've got MV and debt. They're the macro metrics. Then we have GDP and and SME growth. So GDP is a flawed metric. So I quickly want to talk about Easter Island, and it's one of the best analogies of why gross domestic product is a shitty metric and carrot to aim for. Because Easter Island, going back several hundred years now, is this tiny island secluded in the Pacific. Well, I say tiny, it is relatively large, but tiny in comparison to England, let's say. And it was covered in forest. It was lush, wild, like rainforest across the whole island. And it started with a tiny population, and the population grew and grew and grew. And what it found is that because it had all these rainforests, timber was its main export. So there were surrounding islands near Easter Island that they used to do trade with, and they basically used to sell trees. And the inhabitants of Easter Island got so carried away with economic growth and GDP that they're like, oh wow, okay, we're making loads of money here. You know, we're selling our timber and we're getting loads of, you know, fancy precious metals and, you know, limestone, all that sort of stuff, to the point where they completely forgot about the ecosystem that they're in. They're in a tiny confined island and they're chopping all of the trees down, to the point where it got past the tipping point where they chopped so many trees down and their rainforest down that the rooting system of Easter Island just completely disappeared. And without roots, the soil is, or yeah, an island or any ecosystem needs roots to hold in the soil. And so they had mass soil erosion, and when they had basically the winds just basically blew off the soil, and it became a barren island. And I think it had something like 80% of its population died. So literally sorry, some random people standing outside my car. So most of the inhabitants of Easter Island died simply because they had no crops. They couldn't, their whole economy collapsed. Food collapsed because they ran out of soil, and timber, and everything collapsed. Well, GDP, and that's because they're obsessed with economic growth and they're chasing GDP, gross domestic product. Well, the globe is no different to Easter Island. What are we doing? Every country on the planet is freaking obsessed with GDP. Got to keep, you know, every company on the stock market, like all the investors and Wall Street, they're like, oh, what were earnings in Q1, Q2, Q3, 4, etc. And everyone's so freaking narrow-minded. They're like, oh, okay, what were profits this month, whatever, that they're completely forgetting that we are absolutely ransacking the world in terms of its ecosystem. So what happened with Easter Island will happen with the globe. Now, the ramifications of, you know, an Easter Island type event for the globe is going to happen in, you know, probably 100 years, if we don't sort our shit out. 100 years, in fact, probably even sooner. When you look at the moisture absorption in the atmosphere, it's quite alarming. And it's, I forgot the stats now. I made a video about it, but something like for every no, I'm not even going to try and bastardize this quote, because basically the more moisture that is absorbed by the atmosphere, it basically leads to far more violent and numerous weather events. And so basically when you look at the equator, so the tropical band around the world, that's where basically all the weather on the planet is controlled in the equatorial regions. That's where most of the moisture is, and what happens in the equatorial regions basically dictates all the weather around the world, the UK, even up to Norway and the Arctic. And long story short, the atmosphere is absorbing more moisture, which means it's basically causing more horrific weather events. So we will expect more hurricanes, more tsunamis, or maybe not tsunamis, that's tectonic movement, but more sort of, yeah, hurricanes and stuff like that, and monsoons. So yeah, over time, yeah, so I'm going off on a weird tangent now. I was just thinking of the domino effects of, you know, all the bollocks we're doing right now. So, yeah, GDP is just a shit metric, okay? So ignore it. So when a country goes, oh yeah, GDP is up or down, it's just zone out. The real thing that matters is SME growth. Well, the real thing that matters in terms of economic growth is SME growth. So when I say SME growth, so a lot of people, when they hear the term SME, small to medium enterprise, they think of, you know, your mom and pop business. Or if I look down the street, we got Oriental Wellbeing and Healthcare, Tax Assist. Basically, I'm on Burr Street in Norwich, and there's a whole bunch of small shops there, and everyone thinks, oh, that's SME. But small to medium enterprise, when you look at the actual, I mean, that's basically anything from companies from sort of 1,000 staff and below. So a small business is actually pretty freaking large, especially when you look at the medium enterprises. A medium enterprise is, you know, probably a couple of thousand staff. So when you're looking at, you know, your average shop down the street or your coffee shop, etc., it's not a small business, it's a micro business, or a nano business even, when you look at the grand scheme of things, because you have to look at everything in an absolute scale. So you have to look at all of the biggest corporates, you know, like Serco, Tesla, Amazon, I mean, these companies have hundreds of thousands of staff, so they'll be like on the high end of enterprise. Or if you look at the NHS, the 4th biggest employer on the planet, they're right up here. And then obviously you then have, you know, people which are one-man bands, and so the SME chunk is, you know, is relative, yeah, it's tiny. But anyway, when you look at SME growth, what has it done over the last 18 months? Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to realise that we've all been screwed. We've literally been bent over, and our master is making up all sorts of bullshit reasons. Like Float Norwich, this is a tiny business which is suffering. It's bleeding cash. Yes, it's got some grants coming in periodically, and everyone, like anyone that's not in business goes, oh yeah, you should be fine, you got all those grants coming in. Yeah, but I'm also not getting the revenue that I used to get every month. Like, the grants do not even touch the surface of, you know, it doesn't meet all the outgoings and the revenue that all these businesses are not getting right now. Restaurants, cafes, float centres, like, it's hard. Like, when you look at my whole group, I've got roughly 40 to 50 staff on furlough right now. And it sucks. Because what's happened is every business has had to basically cope and pivot to the point where a lot of businesses now, if we're still running, we've pivoted to the point where we're running without the furlough staff. So when I look at my group right now, and I've been completely open with everyone in the group, that when furlough ends, SMEs are screwed. Nano businesses are especially screwed, because I've had to pivot all my businesses, so we're running fine on a lean ship now without 40 staff. And I'm not in the only boat. I have other friends who have hundreds of staff on furlough, and I think, yeah, when furlough ends, there's going to be one royal clusterfuck that's going to emerge, which is why Rishi's had to extend furlough for a lot longer, etc. But what's going to happen? Like, being completely honest, like the group, so in the group there's a whole bunch of different businesses, and that, like, we're managing fine now without the 40 odd staff. And so I'm going to have to, I'll try and keep as many jobs as I can, but I will have to make some redundancies. And so there's going to, yeah, so what's happening with, you know, all the budgets, and it's not like they're just kicking the can down the road, okay? So everyone seems to think, oh no, the drama from 2020 is over. No, it hasn't even begun. That 2020 was the hors d'oeuvre of what to expect. So royal clusterfucks inbound, folks. Just be wary, and therefore, what are the dominoes of that? You know, we will have another, you know, stock market collapse, much bigger, because what governments do is they simply just go, all right, morphine, you know, to any sort of gut shots or, you know, bullet wounds. But morphine never solves a problem. That's what financial stimulus is. It's morphine and heroin. It doesn't fix the internal bleeding. So yeah, so that's sort of the GDP and the SME growth. Basically, SME growth has been effed, royally effed, and it won't last. So yeah, so there's a long tail risk to what happened with all of these lockdowns. So the next metric you need to look at is PMI, so the Purchasing Managers Index. So the ones to look at are the Chinese and the US PMI, because they're the two countries that really actually produce stuff, mainly China. And when we had the initial March 2020 crash, PMI across the world just plummeted down. Now what PMI is basically when an industrial company, they all have purchasing managers, supply managers. They have to order stuff from China, etc. Well, when the economy grinds to a halt, all these orders to the China and US, etc., they stop or they diminish. And so the PMI, the Purchasing Managers Index, is basically that, and it is a leading indicator on economic growth, because when the PMI drops, it means orders around the world drops, and everything slows down. So a lot of people I saw back in, I guess, a year ago, and even now to some extent, they're like, oh wow, the world must be still growing, because when I go online, everything's out of stock. And they're incorrectly thinking that it's because people are buying so much stuff. It's wrong. The reason everything's out of stock right now is because, everyone got screwed, and there's less output. There's just less economic output in China and the US. Oh, here's my first tenant. Well, potential tenant. Hopefully he looks around Floating Norwich and wants to take it, and he can, yeah, because I want to move premises, sorry. So please like the building, because I don't want to be stuck in this lease. Anyway, right, so that's the PMI, and then U6. So U6 is the main employment numbers. So again, unemployment, I guess, is I could argue that it's a leading indicator and it's a lagging indicator. I mean, yeah, I'd say mainly fits in the lagging indicators, because you get unemployment due to shit happening in the economy. So yeah, and in fact, let's put it into sort of a consequence, because when you take all the main macro metrics, so like MV, economic GDP/growth, debt, the PMI, the first dominoes from that, I guess, are bankruptcies, delinquencies, and unemployment. I guess they're the knock-on effects. And when you look at the amount of bankruptcies and delinquencies around the world, it's sky high. And when you combine that with demographics, I mean, it's crazy. I mean, we've got all the baby boomers. I think the average baby boomer is between 72 and 76 years old right now, and so the baby boomers were, I think they were, or they maybe still are. It's been probably 6 months since the last check, so my data's flawed right now, or dated. So last time I checked, the baby boomers were the biggest demographic that were business owners. Okay, so the more businesses, if you looked at all the demographics, baby boomers had the most businesses, simply because they're they've been around longer. Well, they're all 72 to 76 years old on average, and guess what? They're retiring. So we have an absolute tsunami of businesses coming up for sale or winding down, plus we have the 2020 bollocks, or the tail end risk and consequences of lockdowns and stuff, that yeah, we just got a flooding of businesses coming up for sale, winding down, going bankrupt, and also delinquencies. Pretty much every shopping centre in the world is falling short of their obligations, as in for their lease. Yeah, just go to your town centre, walk around your local shopping mall or mall, I don't know, I never know what to say, ball or bow, yeah, it's ball, so mall, shopping mall. So yeah, I mean, in Norwich we have the Castle Mall, Castle Mall, I can never get it right, or it's now called Castle Quarter, so that helps. It's just empty. All the shops are buggered off. They've had to repurpose the rooms to table tennis room, piano room, etc. Yeah. So, oh yeah, Adam on Facebook has just posted Fred a link for the U6 rate. Yeah. So, and here's another thing which I find really interesting. So when you look at the global or the US currency expansion or the currency growth, okay, so there's different ways to look at money. So there's M0, M1, M2, M3. There's a few more, but they're the four main things. But when you look at M1, so M1 is the thing which I think we can sort of all understand, and that's pure money. So it's hard cash, coins, notes, and the things in your bank account. That's basically what M1 is. M2 is M1 plus a few other bits and bobs, and then M3 is the broadest overview of your currency supply. That includes all debt. So M1 is M0, M2, M1 and 2, and credit card debt, all forms of credit. Okay, so I think if you go back to 1996, M3 started going vertically, and then the US were like, we're no longer going to report M3 anymore. You don't need it. Because what they were trying to do is they're massively increasing their currency supply, and M3 was the best indicator or the best visual thing showing the currency going vertically up. So they're like, yeah, we're not going to bother anymore. Well, guess what the US have just done? They've stopped reporting on M2. So it's like, yeah, we're massively diluting and debasing our currency supply. Everyone knows it, but we're going to make it a bit harder for people now to really keep track on it. So they've stopped updating M2. So, like, yeah, it's a bit like when yeah, the CPI. So for those who don't know what the CPI is, I call it the CPI. So it's the Consumer Price Index. So the way that they measure inflation is they have a basket of metaphorical goods of what people use on a daily basis: iPhones, bread, milk, TVs, cars to an extent, groceries, just all sorts of stuff. So, but what happens is they sort of pick and choose what goes in the basket and what goes out of the basket according to what their agenda is. So, for example, if fish prices go cod price goes sky high because we're farming out and exhausting cod in the North Sea, and it starts pushing up inflation in this basket, they go, oh, actually, we don't like that inflation's going up too fast. What we'll do is we'll remove cod and we'll put crab sticks in instead. Yeah, that'll make it better. Okay. And so they sort of pick and choose what they want. Well, the biggest sort of shenanigans they've done with the CPI or the CPI basket is rent and mortgages used to be in this frickin' basket back in the 70s, 80s, and I think they got rid of it in sort of the 90s. Remember, Thatcher and Reagan started the every man must own his own home campaign, and they tried to boost the property market. Well, guess what happened? Rent and mortgages went sky high. It made inflation shoot to the moon, and they're like, oh, actually, this isn't good. And so they got rid of rent and mortgages from the basket. If you ask anyone, in fact, there's what, I don't know, 10 people in Clubhouse here and 50 odd people in Facebook Live right now. I would challenge anyone here where your biggest outgoing right now, well, probably one of your biggest outgoings is your rent or your mortgage. Literally every person's main outgoing, or one of the main outgoings, is rent or mortgage. Well, why the hell have they taken it out of the basket? Yeah, to obscure stuff. It's all bollocks. It really is. So yeah, Aaron has said they're repurposing the rooms in the Castle Quarter to avoid business rates. Yeah, hadn't thought of that. That's a good take. I like that. Mark Martin, I remember them taking that out. Yeah. So that's sort of my little rant. So how does this help us? It's all very well having little rants and stuff. Everyone can rant, but let's connect the dominoes. What are the dominoes? Because that's where you make money in investing. It's second and third order consequences where you make the real money. And by the way, when I'm aware that not everyone here is a trading student, so everything has first, second, third, and other tertiary order consequences. So if I were to punch you in the face, the first order consequence is pain. And what's the second order consequence? The second order consequence is you'll be angry. Adrenaline will then start flooding into your system. Emotions will then kick in. You'll be angry, confused. You'd want retribution. So all of that happens in milliseconds. And then the third order consequence is that, a hook, a big old right hook will be inbound my way. Okay, so this is an example of first, second, third order consequences, and then the fourth order consequence is I'll try and dodge it or block it and try and get in close, yeah, etc. And so all of these subsequent order consequences happens in the real world. So what happens? World economy shuts down for the best part of a year or more. or it's still shut down pretty much. Well, what are the second, third, fourth order consequences? There's loads. It's too many to tell. I can't see or spot all of them. The easy ones for me, because I like to know a little bit about a lot. So I have this big fuzzy peripheral, but I try to focus on what I'm doing. So I have like a really crystal clear focus. And the obvious thing for me is that crypto. Honestly, I'm probably like a really boring track record right now. But seriously, the easiest way to profit from all of this doom and gloom is just get into crypto. It is the best hedge against uncertainty. People say it is an uncorrelated asset, but it isn't. I used to say it was an uncorrelated asset, but it really isn't. So if you take Bitcoin, it is a decentralized crypto. If you look at Ether, it's a decentralized crypto. But is it really? Because when you look at all the bag holders, as in the big main wallet holders, it's centralized. It's like basically billionaires, miners, and institutions now that own all of the Bitcoin, as in the majority of Bitcoin. So it's now a centralized asset, even though it's supposed to be a decentralized asset. It's another reason why Elon Musk loves Dogecoin, and he's trying to get all of the big bag holders to dump their coin, because he said, I want to get behind Doge, but I can't when there's so many big holders of it. And so I guess this is where, yeah, crypto is great because it, with decentralized stuff, but humans are humans and banks are banks, and they'll always do what they do. What do Wall Street in general do when something new like crypto comes along? They'll try and own it, and once they own it, they can manipulate it. But yeah, I think the easiest hedge against all of this is, one, try and set up your own business that will last. Like an online type business, a subscription based business, a delivery business. If you can set up a business right now and get traction and even get a couple £100 a month profit, you're golden. Honestly, if you can weather the storm now, you're going to weather any freaking storm in the future, which is interesting. So in my group, I've got 3 failing businesses, 3 average businesses, and 3 booming businesses. So the failing businesses, yeah, I'm not going to bother doing those sorts of business ever again. But I now know what's going to work. So so get into business if you can. Honestly, it's never been so easy to get into business. The barrier to entry is low. Like the tech makes it so friggin' easy. Look at the WAP, thewap.org. Okay, shameless plug, but the WAP helps you. The other thing, get into crypto. Honestly, it's just like, as I said in previous videos, I don't have risk capital in crypto anymore. I have non-risk capital into crypto. Every spare penny I'm putting into crypto right now. Every spare penny. So yes, I've still got my rainy day fund, so I'm not putting okay, let's qualify this. I don't want to be reckless. I always have 3 months, at minimum 3 months worth of OPEX, personal OPEX, in one of my bank accounts. So I'm not going to say the number, but I've got 3 months worth of personal outgoings. So my rent, all my utilities, all that sort of stuff, I've got that in cash. Okay, so I'm not touching that little pot there. I have the same for my businesses. So my businesses have a spare buffer. At the moment, I don't have 3 months worth of cash for each business, which is annoying. I don't like going below that, and that's mainly because I've sort of bled some of the businesses in, for crypto purposes. So, but yeah, crypto, as long as you're not dicking around as shit coins, and if you're putting money in blue chip crypto, then you're relatively safe. For example, if you look at what Grayscale Investments, they got $35 billion worth of crypto right now. Have a look at the crypto they're investing in. But whatever they're investing in is by default a blue chip crypto. For a fund that big to start, to buy all these other crypto, it has to be a pretty solid crypto. So anything with the sort of over $1 billion market cap is going to be a blue chip crypto. So the ones I'm mainly interested in, my biggest positions are Binance, Cardano, Ether, Link, Polkadot, so Chainlink, Polkadot. I've got Gas as a bit of a punt. They're the main big ones, really. That's where probably 80% of my holdings are in those simple ones. But yeah, I think, God, we need a whole video just talking about 3rd, 4th, 5th, 10th order consequences from all the calamity that's happened. Right, let's have a look at the chat. Chat. Andrew Doyle, crash SMEs and support large corporations, happening. Yep, I agree, and there's all sorts of reasons for that. Don't want to get into that. Automate human jobs, happening. Yep. Economic collapse and the Great Reset. Yeah, it's all about the Great Reset, and I've made videos about this. So yeah, Andrew, glad that you're aware of this. A lot of people are not aware of the Great Reset. Just look at all the stuff on their YouTube channel. It's all in plain sight. They're not hiding shit. They just know that humans are complacent.
Buy the book.
Yeah, buy the book by Klaus Schwab. Yeah, we've got it. It's their playbook. Aaron Redbrick sells house, buys Bitcoin. Lol. I wouldn't even smirk at that. If I had a mortgage, that's what I would do. So there's lots of nice cars rolling up in this car park right now. I'm hoping they're gonna look at my premises. Aaron, I hope it's okay to post. So Aaron Redbrick said, I hope it's okay to post, Simon. This is the interview I spoke about on Wednesday. I found a cut version of it. She basically echoes what you said. Worth a listen. Okay, I can't click that, but yeah, go for it. The WAP. Cheers, Adam. Andrew, create a crypto where one person can have a maximum holding, e.g. £10 million. I've been suggesting this for years. Andrew, another great suggestion. That really is a good suggestion. How you'd police that, I don't know. Because there's all sorts of ways you can play around with money. Because if it's a bank, if you did that and a bank wanted to, get around that, they'll just create lots of different entities. So, yeah. William Raymond, hey, Will Grandy, if invested 100k into property with a current 7 to 10% yield today and 100k into crypto, which would bring back the most return in 10 years time, bearing in mind I'd still have to pay rent and mortgage during this process. Put it this way, I put £95,000 into crypto in January and it's now sat at like 300k. Honestly, crypto, and plus, not only that, you could buy like 100k's worth of a stable coin and then get 10 to 15% yield on the stable coin. Or you could buy 100k worth of Cardano, like worst case scenario, buy 100k's worth of Cardano, which is like one of the golden boys in the crypto space, and then stake it. You'll make 5% on Cardano, and that's 5% in ADA, as in Cardano that you'll get, not fiat. So if the price of Cardano carries on going up, you'll get 5% in terms of yield in ADA, which is mined out or minted out, but your fiat ROI will be far higher. So if the price of Cardano doubles, well, guess what? You'll make 5% yield in ADA, but your fiat yield will double. It'll be like 10%. So yeah, I'm staking all of my Cardano and Polkadot and Chainlink. Not Chainlink, Polkadot especially. Siam, what was that 3 months OPEX away? Sorry, Siam, was that 3 months OPEX away? You did things before COVID? Yeah. I've just got a rule of 3 months of cash buffer. The reason being is because I'm so anally obsessed with capital arbitrage and making every penny work for yourself. I've got myself into a spot of cash flow bother in the past by going like putting every single penny into investments and then having temporary cash flow issues because I haven't got any. And what I did, stupid move, is that I was putting every penny into illiquid assets. What an idiot. And so when I had cash flow problems, I couldn't get the cash out because I put them all in freaking illiquid assets. So now if I do play around with company business, company funds, etc., I put them into liquid assets, crypto. So if I do need them, I can liquidate them. And my rule is, my rule for liquid stuff is I need to be able to liquidate it within a week. So most brokerage accounts, most crypto accounts, trading accounts, you'll get your money back within 3 to 5, or probably 3 to 7 working days. But yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So, but here's the annoying thing with my personal OPEX. My personal OPEX, so my operational expenditure, my monthly outgoings, has grown over the years because of Parkinson's law and all that. And so the 3 month cash buffer I have sat in my account is a nice pot, and I always want to play with that money, but I don't, because the moment I play with that, a building's going to burn down, knowing my luck. Aaron, just in case anyone wants to know, I'm currently doing the WAP that Simon runs. Well worth the money. Aaron, thank you. Folks, it's £30 per month. That is it. Or 300 quid a year. And you have like unlimited amounts of videos. It's like, yeah, you won't get through all the videos. Food being manipulated, Amanda Hunt. Yep, Bill Gates, biggest farm owner on the planet right now. Or in the US, sorry, not the planet, the US. It's interesting.
Can I jump in, Simon, with a question?
Go for it, Adam.
Sorry,
yeah, no, please, go for it.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you about intertropical convergence zones and wet periods and things like that, but it's another conversation.
Yeah.
Just, I watched your Jabba the Hutt video.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. That's a good one. Just a question about owing money to World Banks when you look at a macro level. So, just a very simple on Wikipedia, for example, you look at just list of countries by external debt. Now, there's quite a lot of countries, albeit island nations, most of them, that really don't have a lot of external debt. Does that mean, or am I getting this wrong? Because I'm a complete amateur.
No,
Does that
no.
mean basically they can stick their fingers up and do what they want as such, all other things being equal?
Yeah, like Gaddafi, and then you get invaded.
So that's the consequence of it. It will become that's whatever it was in the video. I think the second.
Yeah, you either get invaded or the leader mysteriously dies of heart complications, like Tanzania, and it's interesting. Pretty much most leaders that basically went screw you, World Economic Forum, and World Health Organization, they're all dead or been dethroned. Yeah, it's interesting. So
what about someone like Liechtenstein as an example?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. What I know is that any country with a central bank is is enslaved to the upper echelon, so the Banking for International Settlements, the IMF and World Bank. So countries without a central bank have a bit more leeway, but I'm not sure that there's bound to be certain pressures. Like Liechtenstein, they'll probably, are they a EU principality or are they part of the EU?
I think they're part of the EU.
Okay, yeah, so the European Central Bank owns them, pretty much. So,
okay, so just a question on from that, it's just a further question. A lot of the countries where they have a relatively low because they're not wealthy countries, are Central Africa. Do you think over the next decade that these Central African nations are going to rise more quickly than the Western countries?
Yeah. Africa is going to be probably the most prosperous continent on the planet over the next 50 years. Africa is going to leapfrog people and it's going to bamboozle people. So Africa is blessed with natural resources, which is going to be a big thing over the next couple of decades. It's also blessed with, again, a lot of people. They have huge labour forces, or they could mobilise huge labour forces if they could. And the thing is, they're not constrained by current existing infrastructure. So what you'll see is like an underdeveloped African nation going from, nothing, no infrastructure, to being a modern nation, better than some modern nations. So for example, if you take the UK, to overhaul the UK's infrastructure is a gargantuan task. Like if you wanted to overhaul the London subway, huge. I mean, it's the biggest subway system on the planet, the London subway. If you wanted to overhaul our telecommunications network, everything is so set, like we've got everything's like, it's hard to remove it. Whereas if you have like a country, like if you take the DRC, the Democratic Republic of Congo, like Congo has nothing, pretty much. Like I'm being broad brush, tar brush here. Congo pretty much has nothing. It's rainforest. Has huge amounts of resources, but all it takes is I don't know, 500 billion, trillion worth of investment, and all of a sudden it will have 5G, it'll have great resources. Hell, if they're switched on, they get Elon Musk's Hyperloop installed, or Loop installed, and they'll be like, honestly. So if I was a billionaire, I would be ploughing my money into Africa right now. I really would. And not for short-term gains, but I would be ploughing into Africa to set up my position so that in 10 to 20 years time, I'm going to be golden. And guess what? The main resource that Africa is blessed with is solar. There's so much, you could power, to put it into perspective, you could power the whole of the US with 100 square miles of solar panels and 1 square mile of battery packs. That's just the US. You can do similar things, and that's with current PV efficiency. So if you took a PV cell of 20%, you could power all of Africa easily with solar. So sorry, I'm going off on one. So your question is
that answers my question, and thanks for that, mate. It kind of reinforces my that kind of sort of view Central Africa in particular as being like seen out of Futurama, basically.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if you watched that or not.
I love it.
Where it's literally going to be like that. Where you're going to see like the UK and the US just like rusting. I don't know. But anyway.
So talking about Futurama. Leela, attractive or not? I've never been able to work that out. No. You've gone silent. No. As a kid, I used to watch Futurama, and I was never sure if I was attracted to Leela, which is she was a Cyclops in.
Oh yes, yeah. The answer is yes.
Yeah. So, right. Cool. Cheers, Adam. Yeah. By the way, if you folks haven't seen the Jabba the Hutt video I put on YouTube, watch it. It's interesting. Definitely watch the Jabba the Hutt video. Aaron said, what percentage currently do you have of your liquid net in crypto? My liquid net worth into crypto right now is probably 90%. I've literally got 90% of my liquid net worth in crypto right now. AML, CTF, analyze the owners. They get caught with lots of entities. They lose their holding. Yeah, you could do. It's easier said than done though. Adam Kerrigan, I'm trading the top coins, making 17% per month. Yeah, you can. Obviously, the lower the market cap you go, you can get some pretty cool yields. But remember, with shit coins, you've got to be careful. I see some people like trying to, oh, look at this shit coin. Like if I stake it, I'll get 100% ROI per month. But you have to understand, yeah, you'll be getting 100% of ROI of shitcoin per month. But what is the fiat value? What's the dollar value or the BTC value? As in the Satoshi value, it will be going down. So yeah, you can mine and mint as many shitcoins as you want, but if the value of it's going down, it's pointless. So, Will, thanks. Good to know. 22 pension lump due next year. I'll PM you nearer the time. Have a great weekend. Cool. Yeah, can't give advice, but yeah, I can help somehow. Alex, I think you're one of the few people who not only talks about the 3 months OPEC, but actually does it. Yeah, it's hard. You got to be strict with yourself, mate. You got to be really strict, especially if you're like me and you're obsessed with working your capital. I hate seeing, bank accounts that just sit there doing nothing. It hurts. It really hurts. Stuart says, what wallet do you use for Cardano? I hate to admit this. I'm staking it on Binance. Yeah, I know I'm breaking one of my rules, but my seesaw is: do I trust myself to manage my own wallet or node, versus do I trust Binance? I think Binance is going to be a bit safer for me, just because I lose passwords all the time, whereas I won't lose my Binance password. Jamie Barry, what stablecoin would you recommend for staking? I'd have a look. USDC is giving some great yield. I mean, you could put USDC on the Aave platform and churn out 15% a year at the moment, easy. So, sweet. The two nicest cars in this car park are the two prospective owners looking around my premises. Nice. And they're chatting to the landlord right now. Yay, hopefully I can get out of this building, that'll be great. Oh, by the way, the reason I'm getting out of Float Norwich is because, as in the business, the building, not the business, is because I'm in a tiny premises. I'll show you around, actually. Yeah, I could probably take the phone and show you around in a minute. But the rent is really high. It's like £2,500 a month, and there's only 5 therapy room, so to speak. Whereas right now, so this is me trying to capitalize on some of the bullshit that's happened in the year. So commercial property is in the gutter right now. There's so many premises going up for being vacant, and so what this means is that it's effectively a buyer's market. So I'll be very lucky if I can get out of this lease early, and so what I'm looking for is a far bigger premises, probably 3 times the size, for £1,000 a month. And I'm pretty sure I could find a unit which is £1,000 per month, 3 times the size of this one here. And so that'll be a 1,500 quid a month saving. And so when I look at the costs of moving the business to a new premises, I'll break even in a year. So 1,500 times 12, that's probably going to be the cost of me moving. So yeah, it's just a little move, but yeah, stuff like that you have to think about. Alexander, what would you do with NEO? Hold 1, hold 2, sell a move to better assets, 3 else. Hold. Yeah, because you want some I've always thought it's worth, with crypto, it's always worth having exposure to different cryptos in different sectors, but also different cryptos from different countries. And I don't think a lot of people look at it this way. So yeah, you get into Ether and Polkadot, which are effectively Western. I know they're decentralized and they have devs all over the world, but really it's a Western crypto. Whereas Ontology, VeChain, and NEO, they're mainly Chinese entities. So I want access and exposure to Chinese blockchains. So that's why I like Ontology, VeChain, and NEO. Alex, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Yep, one of my favourite books. What other questions are there? Alex, buy solar panels plus mine BTC. Land is cheap at the moment in Africa. Yeah, land is really cheap. The problem you have with mining Bitcoin in Africa is the heating. But if you have enough solar panels, it doesn't really matter. You can offset that. Honestly, why don't you just, as I said, if you could, like I said with the US, you could power the whole of the US with just solar energy, 100 square miles of solar panels, 1 square mile of battery packs. If you were to look at the map of the US, that wouldn't even be a pixel. It wouldn't even be a pixel. It would be like a tiny dot in Texas, if you were to do that. And you could do the same in Africa, because it's so blessed with the light. A country, like a leader, if I was a country leader in Africa, I would literally go, right, what pixel of our map do I want to put 50 square miles of solar panels in? Done. Great, we're now energy independent. In fact, we can then start, and I would go overboard. I'd do it so we create surplus energy and start selling electricity to neighbouring countries. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good theories that you can do out there. It's just annoying that we need more Elon Musks in the world. We really do. And which is why I also am a big fan of Chamath Palihapitiya. I can never say his surname. Chamath, yeah, the billionaire. Because I think very similar to him, and his sole goal right now is get to the money. He just wants to make as much money as possible, but not because he likes money. It's just so he can do shit, and I like that. I'd love to be a billionaire, not because of the status, but just so I can freaking do shit and do some crazy shit. Anyway, moving on. Jeremy, but can the rampant corruption be overcome? No, you'll never get rid of corruption, ever. Never, ever. Again, look at the psychopathy scale and the human distribution of it all. Again, I talk about that in the Jabba the Hutt video. Marky Sparky, she's gorgeous, yeah. Alex, I'm from Bulgaria. We've had 100+ consecutive days of protests against corruption. Nothing happened. My answer is a firm no. Yeah, you can't get rid of corruption. You can't. You really can't. And even if there are massive concerted efforts, corruption just go underwater, or go into the black markets, so to speak. Ross, I'm from Zimbabwe. Corruption is a huge problem. Yeah, every country. A lot of people seem to think that developing nations have the worst corruption. That is incorrect. Developing nations have corruption, which they're very bad at masking it. The more developed a country, the more corruption you have, but it's just a higher level of corruption, and it's just more blanketed and more concealed. The UK, the square mile in London, is the most corrupt place on the planet. Why do you think the UK is still somewhat of a tiny powerhouse, and we're a tiny island that does bugger all these days? It's because of all of the corruption. Is like London is the hub of corruption. It really is. Shin said no Daedalus for Cardano. Yeah, I do. It's just my Daedalus. I always get syncing issues. It's just not user intuitive enough for me at the moment. I'm a tech moron, honestly. If I can't get something working, simply, I'm gonna end up breaking it. And until crypto can get, SIAM compliant, it's not gonna enter the mainstream. Aaron says commercials overpriced in Norwich. I went with light industrial over in Ratkeith. Yeah, I agree. I'm looking for something like that on the outskirts of Norwich. I get some big space for little money. Jamie Barry, are there any risks staking long term as Save or Celsius not? Huh? I think you mean Aave or Celsius not regulated. Yeah, there's, especially with crypto, there's no real long term security. The only safe things in crypto are Ether and Cardano and Binance, I guess, and Bitcoin, really. So much weight and momentum behind them. Oh, sorry, just swapped my camera, stand by. No, here we go. Right. Andrew says, corruption is huge in Africa. Resource comments, completely correct though. I agree about you solar maths. Man-made climate change, completely reversible. It's a huge bugbear of mine. Has been for 20 years, studying astrophysics and then physics at uni, but big oil and big energy, like big pharma, are powerful influences. Yeah, of course. I think the last time I checked, big oil makes $2.5 billion profit per day. If you took all the big oil companies, they make $2.5 billion profit per day. So of course they're going to try and get rid of the, delay. So for every day they can delay the solar revolution, that's an extra $2.5 billion of profit a day. For every day. Yeah. Okay, last question here on the comments, and then, oh shit, we're gonna have to wind this up. We've been going for an hour. Veronica has said, a question that has been puzzling me: has anyone studied the impact of diverting so much of the sun's energy away from the planet into solar for human use, geologically, meteorologically, astrologically? Solar energy that has been absorbed into the earth, plants. You know what? I haven't actually thought of that. My gut reaction is I can't see it really affecting it, because if you took like an arid desert, that solar energy is being wasted. It's simply being reflected back in. Oh yeah, shit. Then you got the reflection issues. That's interesting. Yeah, that's a really good point, Veronica. My gut reaction is I can't see it affecting that much, because when you look at, again, you have to look at everything on an absolute scale. So and go back to first principle thinking. So I would simply look at, I'd look at the total joules per energy hitting the ground every 24 hours, every minute, and then you look at the surface area of the planet, and then you look at the realistic surface area that humans would need to occupy in solar panels to power the whole planet, and I think it would be negligible. Yeah, I think it would be negligible. So my gut, again, I'm not a scientist, but I'm a massive fan. I research this all day long. Yeah, I think when you look at how much space would need to power the world, it's not much. As I said, with current technology, current PV efficiency, it would only take 100 square miles of solar panels to power the whole of the United States. Just 100 square miles of just random desert in Nevada or Texas. That'll do the trick. So yeah, obviously if you're going to put solar panels over a freaking rainforest in Ecuador, then yeah, maybe not so. But the way you get around the solar issue is that you don't just chop down trees and make massive solar farms. You have to do it locally. So you basically like, I'm looking at this, like what is this? It looks like a council flat here. It's like a 3-story council flat. Or like the surface area on that roof there. That roof is doing frig all. So you just put solar panels. Basically, if you put solar panels on every house, I would make, if I was leader of the UK, I would make it illegal to build any building without solar panels covering the whole roof. Obviously, if it's not south facing, but yeah, I would make it illegal to build a property without solar panels. So what that would then do is it wouldn't make that building completely self-sufficient, but it would mean it would alleviate the load the energy load it draws from the national grid. So what that then means is that if the government were to then try and get the whole country on solar or renewables, it would then have a lower amount of energy that it would have to account for. If, let's say every building had solar panels on it, and that, it reduced energy grid draw by, 20%, that's a massive saving, and a massive help. Obviously, it depends what country you're in. So if in the UK, it would have to be a mix of wind and energy, wind, solar, and tidal for the coastal regions. But again, for Africa, it's just go solar. So yeah, that's the way forward. And there's also PV technology is really interesting. I mean, they've made glass, so see-through glass, a solar panel, very weak and inefficient solar panel, but they've made it so you can make, all the high-rise glass buildings in London. You could turn all those windows into mini solar panels. Yeah, I'm going off on one here. Sorry, I'm talking about energy now. What is it? Veronica, but yeah, you're so correct. Planet Earth is very complex. And by the way, here's a massive flaw with the whole energy climate change thing. We are not harming the planet, folks. We are not harming the planet as much as the Sun newspaper would like you to agree. What we're harming is the delicate balance that allows humans to exist on the planet. That's all that's happening. Again, when you look at temperature, like, humans can only exist in a very narrow band of temperature, and you mustn't look at it from like 0 degrees up. You have to look at it in the Kelvin scale. So when you look at the narrow band that humans can exist on the Kelvin scale, so minus 273 degrees Celsius to upwards, it's a very tiny band. And so if we fluctuate like a couple of degrees up or down on this massive temperature scale, or the absolute temperature scale, is tiny. So the only things that we're not harming the planet at all. If anything, planet Earth prefers a higher carbon dioxide environment, but humans don't like that. Yeah, so next time you see a climate, global warming thing, we're not harming the planet at all. We're not. We're harming the conditions that support human life. That's all that's happening. Mother Earth will shake us off like a bad rash, and she will. On an astronomical scale, she will. And when I say astronomical scale, like, it's highly unlikely humans will be around in 1,000 years, unless we can get off Earth. So, Rosie, what batteries would you suggest to add to a 12 kilowatt solar panel system? I have no idea. Hands up, I just don't know. So, okay. One sec. I've got to go. That's the landlord. I need to chat with him. Been here for an hour. Gotta go, folks. See ya. Bye.